Well, good morning, Health 101. This is your instructor, Kempton Jackson. This is for our class that's happening this Thursday that I'll be gone for. And so this is your lecture for that class. We usually do this in person, but it's kind of nice that we are going to be able to do this on our own in our own time. And we could use our class time to be able to meet and do the things we need to do then. Well, thanks for joining this morning, and thank you for engaging in this class. And so far, it's been so encouraging the way that you all have been engaging in our warm-ups and our cool-downs and in our medicine ball work. So good job. Keep up the good work. I'm thankful for you all. Today, I want to talk about one thing with 4 parts, and you have a PDF in your email that you can click on and look through or take notes on as we go through this, okay? So today, what I want to talk about is this FITT principle, F-I-I-T. It's kind of a simple way of putting this whole idea of exercise into your life in different categories for you to think through as you try to wrestle with and think through health the rest of your life and exercise the rest of your life. And so there are these different things that you need to think about. So I'm going to make this kind of quick because we're not in this class to hear lectures. We're in it to actually be active. That's why most of this class is based on participation. So I won't be long, hopefully. I'm trying to keep it short. But this is important. And I want to talk about this too as frequency, intensity, time, and type. I want us to think about these as natives too, and the way that we have, our people and people everywhere have lived for centuries until now, when our lives have become so sedentary and we sit around so much, okay? So let's talk about this first thing in the FITT principle, F. F is frequency. If you think about frequency like a wave, it goes up and down at a certain frequency. Frequency has to do with how often you exercise per week, okay? How often do you exercise per week? And so if you can think about this in days. You have 7 days a week. How many days in there do you exercise? Is it 3? Is it 1? Is it 2? Regardless of how you work this out, CDC recommends that we have 150 minutes, so about 2.5 hours of moderate exercise per week. 2.5 hours of moderate exercise. Or 75 minutes, so 1 hour and 15 minutes of vigorous exercise per week. That's the recommendation. That is kind of base level bottom. Our goal, if we want to live a healthy lifestyle, should be much more than that. And if you think about this, that recommendation of 2.5 hours per week, in the history of the world, that was easy. That was done in 1 day. But the way that our society has gone, and I'm always mentioning this, how sedentary our lives are, how we just sit and stay still for so long. This has never been the way that society's worked, but it is the way that ours works. And so we have to think and be really intentional about making time to exercise. And as a rule of thumb, it's much better to get many small doses of exercise rather than doing 1 2.5 hour hike and say, I'm done for the week. It would be better to do several walks throughout the week. So more frequency and shorter time per exercise. That is better for your health. And that's going to be better for you in the long run, is more days of exercise with shorter time spans. So rather than doing 2.5 hour hike on Saturday, it would be better for you to do 30 minutes 4 times a week, 5 times a week, going on a walk at lunch, going on a walk after dinner, going on a walk in the morning. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But this is something that has to be intentional on your part, is the frequency. How many days per week are you exercising? A good rule of thumb is at least 3 days a week of getting at least 30 minutes of exercise. Still not going to be enough, but really think about frequency, doing this several times a week, exercising, maybe in shorter spans to get that at least that 2.5 hours. So that's frequency. And if we think about this in native culture, our ancestors, at least from the Navajo people, the Hopi people from in the area of the country where I'm from, is that this was done every day. The frequency of exercise was almost daily for many of the people, especially if you were running. In Navajo culture, that's the tribe I'm from, Diné, is you run every morning to greet the sun, to greet ancestors, God, the creator, whoever, whatever your beliefs are there. But you got up every morning and you ran to the east. And that is a good thing to do, even if you don't run. Continuing those types of cultural things is good for our health, mental, physical, spiritual health, of getting up every morning. There is something good for our souls. Getting up early, consistently at a time of the day, 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever it might be, 5 or 4 o'clock, some of you, and getting out and greeting the day and greeting the sun in the morning. Go for a walk, go for a run daily. That's going to set you up for the rest of your life for health, mental, physical, and spiritual. But what this means is that you would have to make a lifestyle change. Our ancestors and people who lived before us, they lived differently. They went to sleep earlier. They didn't have screens in front of them in the evening. They didn't have so many lights around them at night. And so they're able to go to sleep earlier. And so for us to be able to get up daily and to greet the sun or to increase that frequency of exercise is we have to make a lifestyle change, which means getting to bed earlier so that we have the energy and the ability to get up in the morning to greet the sun daily. That is my encouragement to you all. Exercise daily. I know CDC says 150 minutes. Our ancestors did much more exercise than that, and they were among the healthiest and best runners in the world. And so I think that this is something that we could do. Daily exercise, that's frequency. So F, frequency. Next in the FITT principle is intensity. So how hard are you exercising? And usually this is measured in light, moderate, or vigorous. So 3 ways of measuring this. Light is pretty easy. You're able to have a conversation without much trouble. This is going on a leisure walk with a friend. That's light. Moderate might be maybe if you're walking fast and you're able to have a little bit of a conversation, but you're labored in it and it's not easy. Vigorous is vigorous. You're not able to hold a conversation. You're pushing it. You're working hard. You're breathing hard. You're being aerobic. You're working. That's vigorous. You're sweating. You're moving. So you could measure in those 3 ways. And like I said earlier, light you should have. That's walking. We could do that. But moderate to vigorous is what our bodies really need. We were made to do these things. We were made to move quickly. We were made by our Creator to be efficient in moving across the land. You see runners from the different tribes and the way that they were able to move across the land in incredible distances at incredible speeds. That's what every one of our bodies are made for. Even though some of us have some things that keep us from doing that, but in general, our bodies were made to move like that. And one thing to think about as we talk about intensity is that I know that we could be hesitant to be uncomfortable and move into these places of discomfort with exercise. But the reality is that in our world, in our lives, we're going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be discomfort. Life is hard. The thing with exercising more in the moderate and vigorous zones of this intensity area, understanding, is that if you exercise moderately hard or vigorously, you're kind of in a controlled environment where you're stressing your body intentionally. And our bodies, like I said, are made to move and be efficient and go for long periods of time. And so if you're able to be intense in your exercise, you are in a kind of controlled environment where you're stressing your body, and your body will respond and become stronger. We all know this. And this is what helps you through the hard times in your daily life. When you exercise vigorously, your body responds by getting stronger. Of course, things get harder and you feel weaker before you get stronger. And that's after a workout or beginning a new program. but eventually your body responds and it gets stronger and stronger. And then when you have those stressful times at work, stressful times in life, where there's a season that's demanding a lot of you, your body has already gone through this place of controlled stress in exercise, and it's developed and gotten stronger. And so when you enter those times in your life, everyday life, that are difficult, that are stressful, your body has already built up this tolerance for stress. And this is what carries you through those hard times, physically and spiritually and mentally. This is why exercise is so good. It stresses your body in one area, and it gets stronger. And then it makes you stronger for these other times in life. This is why exercise intensity is important. Intense exercise helps us deal with those intensely stressful times in life. And so my encouragement is to build endurance for life and for the intensities of life is to get that high frequency daily exercise of moderate to vigorous, which is going to help you in the long run. So we've talked about frequency, how often, how many times per week you exercise. We've talked about intensity, light, medium, and vigorous. And now let's talk about, well, one thing on intensity before we move on is that there were different ways you could get intensity. You could do intervals. This is timed intervals of working really hard for 2 minutes, then resting a minute. Work hard for 2 minutes, rest 2 minutes. That's a great way to get high intensity in and get a lot out of a short workout. There's also something you could do that's more sustained, like a 30-minute run or a 30-minute bike ride at a high to moderate intensity. Those are ways you could get intensity in. So frequency, intensity. Third is time. So we talked about how many days per week. We talked about the intensity within those workouts. Now we're talking about the time of the workouts. How much time are you running? We've talked a little bit about this in frequency, but how much time are you running? How much time are you doing this daily? And so maybe this is what I've already talked about a little bit in frequency is 150 minutes of moderate and 75 minutes of vigorous exercise. This is how much time we do it daily. And so one thing that I think to myself is just, can I get 30 minutes of some moderate exercise in, whether it's a run, a bike ride, lifting weights? That's just kind of my rule of thumb. If I get 30 minutes in, that's that time piece. I'm going to feel good. And it feels like I've been accomplished in reaching some goals of physical health. For you, that might be different. It depends on where you are in this journey of health and how much time you've put into it so far. And so you might make a goal of, all right, I'm going to do frequency 5 days a week, intensity. I'm going to go moderate or intense. You could choose that. And then you're going to say time. I'm going to do this for 10 minutes a day. 10 minutes a day. And after a week of 5 times a week, you have 50 minutes of exercise. And yes, that may not yet be the CDC's recommended amount, but it's 50 minutes. And if you're not exercising right now, that's 50 minutes more than you would have done otherwise, which may have been none. And so this time piece, how much time in those frequency every day, 3 times a week, how much time are you spending biking, running, weightlifting? There are all kinds of ways that you could figure out how to get exercise in, hiking, some kind of resistance training, rowing, any one of these things. Time is how much time each session you're exercising. And so find a goal, set in your mind a goal, how much you want to do daily or 3 times a week or 5 times a week. So we've talked about frequency, how many times a week. We're talking about intensity, light, medium, or light, moderate, or vigorous. And we've talked about time, how much time each day you're spending exercising. Set a goal for how much time you want to exercise each day, or at each exercise session. Set a goal and have that in your mind of what you want to try and do. And even if I would say start smaller rather than going big, it's much better to start small and be faithful with a little bit then to have these big goals that just feel like it's too much for you to even do. So start small and then let it grow. Aim low and feel that sense of accomplishment, like you've reached your goal, rather than setting a big goal, not reaching it, and then feeling defeated. Okay? So frequency, intensity, time. And lastly, this is type. So frequency, FITT, time and type. So what type of exercise are you doing during these exercise sessions that you're doing several times a week? There are all kinds of ways that you can exercise. There is walking, I've said some biking, running, hiking, weight training, any kind of other resistance training, swimming, rowing. When you're getting out and you're getting your body moving, playing games with kids, playing basketball, these are all types of activity. And this is really what this class is all about. As I look through the syllabus, this is why I really love this class, is we're doing all kinds of different things to help with this type of exercise. We're doing a lot of circuit training, which is where we have a circuit and we do little exercises along the circuit. And so last week and this week, last week we learned about medicine balls, the weighted balls, and how to move them and lift them. That's a type of activity. Later on, next week, we're going to look at TRX, which is some bands that you use to move, and it helps with stability, strength, and endurance. That'll be next week. That's a type. A stability ball, we'll talk about kettlebells. That's those weights with the iron top that are heavy. That's a type of exercise. Dumbbells, barbells, running, all those things we talked about. There are all kinds of different things that you could take advantage of at the IAIA gym. And those are what we're going to explore. And all of this is just an intro to try to get you to see that there are a lot of possibilities in a gym. We don't want it to be overwhelming, but we want to help introduce you to these different types of exercises available to you. But I like to keep things simple because if things get complicated, I know I'm not going to do it. And so very often what I count as exercise is just go for a run. You need some clothes that allow you to move and some shoes that protect your feet. That's really all you need for a run. And so very often that is just my goal. Just go for a 30-minute run. If I get into the weight room, I'll get into the weight room and I'll just do a few exercises, and I have those written down in a plan. And so I do about 5 times a week of either running or weight training. And I have it really simple, and we could talk about that more later. We will when we get to endurance and to barbell training. But keeping things simple. Write down what you want to do. What are your goals? And so type is different types of exercises. And now we finished with frequency, intensity, time, and type. And now the invitation for you is to think about, how often do you want to exercise? What is your goal? I'd like you to get out a pen and paper. This is your assignment. What is your goal for frequency of exercise by the end of this semester? How many times per week are you going to make your goal to exercise? It might be just 2 in this class, but then I want you to think further on. How do you want to exercise going into summer, going into the fall, to prepare for all the things of life that come? So that's the first question. Write down what is your goal for this semester? How often do you want to exercise? That's the first thing. Second, what's your goal for intensity? This is going to tie in with type and frequency. One thing that you have to be careful of is intensity. You can't be intense every day of the week. That'll lead to burnout if you're doing that every day. There have to be days of rest, and there has to be days of intensity. And so how are you going to do that? Maybe 1 day of intensity, several days of moderate, and a couple of days of low intensity. We could talk more about this, and you could just think about this. But the big one is frequency, intensity. What kind of, and this ties in with type, and this will be in the sheet. What kind of exercises are you going to do? Is it going to be running? Is it going to be walking? Is it going to be swimming or weight training in the class that we're together in? That might be your only That might be a big enough goal for you, is to exercise twice a week in class. But what kinds of activities can you take part in right now? What kind of activities interest you? I don't care much for swimming, so that wouldn't be on my list. I love running. I really like biking. Biking is hard, getting a bike ready, getting all the equipment together. And so right now in this stage of life for me, it's just too complicated. So pretty much all I do is run and lift weights. So what are those things for you that you can do now? Is it just go to the gym during class? Go to the gym one time outside of class. So that means you get 3 workouts, doing the same thing we did in class. That might be your goal. And time. How long are you going to do this activity every week? We're just setting goals here and trying to get you to start thinking about this principle and how you order your working out and your health for the rest of your life. Frequency, how often, intensity, how intense is it going to be? Time, how long is it going to be each day or each session? And what kind of exercise am I going to do? Writing things down really starts to get you thinking and giving you ideas about what you can do and what you can't do right now. And it's extremely helpful to write these things down. And so for your assignment, we'll be filling out the sheet that I'm emailing out. You could print these and bring them back to me, or I'll figure out how to get it on Canvas. That's not easy. Well, I'll do both. So I think I'll try to do both and see what we could do in Canvas. Canvas is tough for me, but I could figure it out. Well, one last thing is that if your health, and I'm not just talking about physical health, if your mental, physical, spiritual health are important to you, you have to make time for exercise. You absolutely have to. We are integrated beings. Our minds, our soul, our bodies, they're all connected. If one is really struggling, inevitably the others will. If you're having mental issues, it's going to lead to problems within you, and then problems in your body. If you're having trouble with your body, injury or something, you're sick in a really significant way, it leads to trouble in your mental health and in your spirit. And so my hope is that this class is an introduction into making good practices for the rest of your life that lead to a healthy lifestyle, physical, mental, and spiritual. Well, class, thank you so much. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me. Don't hesitate to ask them in class. And I very much look forward to seeing you all next week. Have a blessed time. Goodbye.